We are in Daf Kuf Daled Amud Aleph at the Mishnah. So Boskin Melach Al Gabe Kavesh Bishvil Shalo Yachliku. So in the base of Midrash, they on the ramp that leads up to the like the Mizbech HaChitzon or Mizbech HaNachosha. Here, let's share a diagram so we can see how it looks. So they used to salt it on the ramp so that way you wouldn't slip when you're heading up, because you're bringing a lot of when you're bringing the korbanot are a little bit messy sometimes, so you wouldn't want the kohanim to slip and hurt themselves. So they would spread salt on it to help you in traction. As I'm sure we're all familiar now. We do it now because of the snow or the ice, but they did it because of the whatever was falling out of the korban or dripping down. And similarly, umamalin mibor hagola bagal b'Shabbat v'be'er hakar b'yom tov. And similarly, I'm not going to translate fully what these things are. Gemara will explain what they are. You have to draw water from the cistern of the exiles of the great cistern by way of the wheel that was designed for drawing its water, even on Shabbos, as well as from the well of Hakar on Yom Tov. So I mean, that's all those things mean. We'll get to in a bit. So the Gemara is going to address each one of them separately. So Rami Le Rav Ika Mi Pashrunya Larava. So Rav Ika raised his congregation before Rava. Tnan. So Tnan. We learned in a Mishnah. Boskin Melach Al Gabe HaKevesh Bishvil Shlo Yachliku. So you can pour salt on it so you don't slip. So what does this mean? So Hamikdashin Umdina Lo, and there it says that you can only do so again. So our mission doesn't say that, but again, it's in the context of the rest of the rest are Pes Mishnayos, where all the cases of Mikdash in Medina Lo. So this one, according to the Girsa that Ravika had that as well by here reference to this case as well. So the only problem with that is that we have another Beit that contradicts that. That Chatzer Shenit Kalkala B'Meig Shamim maybe Teven Umaradeba. Is that when we're talking about a general courtyard that has been damaged by rainwater, you're allowed to put down straw in order and scatter it about to absorb the water, which is not in the base of Mikdash. So what is it? Is it something that you're allowed to do in the Mikdash or not? Right? So then we're in the diagram we're placing down the salt, so that's part of the unit for the voda, so the coin doesn't mess up. But why would we be allowed to do it in our backyard if it's Asher Midrabana? So Shani Teven below Mavatale. The Gemara says no. Straw is different because you never give up on it. You're planning on gathering it back later, so therefore it's not forbidden to place it out now. But with the salt, once you place down salt, you're not going to pick it back up, and therefore it would be a problem. So as far as salt goes, so Amar Le Rav Aka Braid Derabala Ravashi. And Rav Aka said, Rav asked Ravashi, Hi Mel Hechidami. So wait, so when are we salting? Eid Mavatle Kamosif Abinyan. If one negates it, so it becomes part of the ramp, then you've got a problem, because then it's as if you're building onto the Beit Midrash, and that's a problem. Uktiv Hakol B'Tav Miyad Hashem Alayhi Skil. So this means that you can't change anything to the Beit Midrash, and therefore, if you think that the salt is meant to be there, you've just violated an Isser. So now what? And Be'id Lo Kavatalei. And if it's not mevatal to it, then now you have made a chatzitza between the feet of the kohanim and the ram. So what's going on here? So when did they used to spread out the salt? Only b'holaka ivarim lakebet. That's only when they're bringing the limbs of the sacrifice on the ram, the lava vodahi, because that the bringing up of the limbs wasn't technically considered to be part of the avoda, because it was the real avoda was to burn them. So the act bringing it up wasn't a malaka; it was just a way to get to it. Not welcome, Danny. So that's how it solved it. The low, is that really so that it's not a part of the avoda to bring up the various limbs of the animal? Is that not part of the korban, bringing a korban, that you can bring the parts that are going to be burned and then bring them up and then burn them? Doesn't it say in the pasuk, "V'hafti v'ikriv hakohen et hakol v'ikshir mizbecha"? And the kohen brings all of it up and then offers it, and then it'll rise up and smoke upon the zayah. So Amar Mar, Zo halachari bar makeves. And doesn't Mar say that by doing so, that is the mitzvah of bringing the limbs up? So go ahead. So that is not a malacha, and that's the part, and that's when they would put down the salt. So only then, and that's when we would have that would solve our problem. I'm going to stop sharing because it seems like the share is a little unstable. I'll share when we get to another good photo. So Darish Rava. So now we're trying to figure out when exactly are we allowed to salt or not allowed to salt. So just an aside, halachically, you are allowed to salt in front of your house. People don't slip on Shabbos without a problem. Don't worry, that's perfectly mutter and recommended, because you don't really want people slipping and hurting themselves. So, well, again, we're not allowed to shovel. That is entirely separate, more complicated shaila. But according to pretty much everybody, you are allowed to salt your walk, even
though you're changing the state of the snow from ice to water.
Correct, but also because it's for safety reasons.
Right. It's okay.
So then again, actually, maybe I'll check out my crowd, but then I believe it's mutter. I haven't seen somebody say it's mutter yet. I'll get back to you.
Would it be better to put? I'm just wondering whether it would be better to put. And we've always put salt too, but if you put sand, or is that considered building? I remember hearing a share about this, that somehow putting sand might be a problem because you might be building. Because sand stops it from slipping, and you're not actually melting the snow then. So it may deal with the safety, but I thought there was something about building too. So I'm not sure.
I mean, building with Bona, I'm not sure. Here. So I looked at the OU's website. So they say, in general, this prompt actually melt ice on Shabbos, based on Shulchan Aruch and Chaim, Shenchav, and so therefore you should not be using them in general. But if there's a safety concern, then it's allowed, such as we're allowed to extinguish move public hazard from the road on Shabbos, or extinguishing a glowing hot coal that is found in Rosh Hashanah, so that it doesn't come to burn in danger. So therefore, the Shmir Shabbos Zichron says that, according to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, that what is considered here. So here's the Hilda, Rav Neuwirth. That's all quoting Rav. Right, so he says it's fine, and he also quotes Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, his Rebbe, who says that, and what's considered to be public. I mean, like not to. So normally you think public is what we're talking about until now. Rosh Hashanah, right? So 600,000 people. That's like real public, like a real public area. So no, for these purposes, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said you only need to have 3 people, even if they are members of your family. So that would mean that that you have 3 people in your household, that's reason enough to salt your walk. Nobody slips and gets hurt. And if there's more people, that means basically, for all intents and purposes, everybody's walk, unless you happen to be the living, there's only 2 of you, and you live in a place where not a single other person is expected to ever walk by your house, you have to have a very remote cottage for that to happen. Because I imagine at the very least, maybe the mailman will stop by, maybe a neighbor will stop by to say hi. Like somebody will stop by probably over the course of Shabbos. I don't know. Ellie's shaking his head. Nobody ever stops by?
He's on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Ellie.
Not likely.
Not likely? Okay. So if you're remote, okay. So for you, maybe you could say that there's an issue if you're you're in the cottage, but for everybody else, where there's at least 3 people, you'd be able to salt your walk, not a problem. Okay. So now we solved that halachic problem. So now none of us will slip. Hopefully this coming winter on the ice, because we're all gonna make sure to salt our walks properly. Okay, good. So now back to how we're supposed to fix our slippery courtyards with our straw. So Darish Rabbah. So if your courtyard is covered in rainwater, and therefore it's damaged and dangerous, so maybe Tevin and Muradaba. Therefore, you can scatter straw across it in order to absorb it. Amar lay Republic Rav of a hot Tanya Kashum Muradet and Muradet Lobasal Lobakupa Elabashulai Kupa. Wait, but didn't it say always say in the Beit that when you're doing this, scattering the straw, you're not supposed to do it the way you normally would. Rather, you do it using a large basket, or only the bottom of the broken basket. Meaning you have to do it in a way you normally wouldn't. You can't. So for let's say the case of salting, so you should be doing salting in a strange way. So again, this is assuming there's no danger. So salting is not quite a good example, because for salting, you're worried of somebody getting hurt. So therefore, it's a different story. But here, it's saying again, you're just trying to make sure that your courtyard isn't fully ruined, and you're preventing from getting worse. So, but when you're doing so, you're not supposed to do it the way you normally during the week. You have to do a little less. So Hadar Ukim Rava Amor Ale Udraj. So then Rava had somebody else before him to publicize this, and then he again repeated himself. Devarim shamartu b'nechem ta'ud hein bi'adi. The things I mentioned before in regards to the courtyard, that was a mistake. The Ram Kas Amru Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, as we heard from Rabbi Eliezer, Mishum Moradeh Eni Moradeh Lo Basav Lo Bakupa Ela B'Shulei Kupa. As he says, when you're supposed to do so, you're not supposed to do so from a small basket or a large basket, from the bottom of a broken basket. So he probably went and explained that what he had mentioned before in terms of the proper way of doing so was wrong, and he explained how the proper way to do so is instead. So, yeah. So again, the conclusion is you're allowed to, but you have to do it with the shinoi of using the broken basket, because it is seemingly probably drabanan, and the way to solve that probably drabanan is by doing it with a shinoi, and then it would be allowed. Okay. So mamalin mibor hagola. So now we've dealt with salting and with spreading of straw. So now we're going to talk about what we meant by filling from the cistern of the exiles. What does that mean? Okay. So ula ikla lebei Rav Menashe. So one time, Ula was in the house of Rav Menashe, and then another man came by and knocked on the door. So Amar Manhai, that Ula says, who is this? Litzal Gufe, the Kamaka Le L'Shabda. And Ula said, who is it? May his body be desecrated as he desecrates the Shabbos by knocking so loudly. Yeah. Okay, so probably not the way you're supposed to respond when it gets knocked on the door, but this happened. So now, Orle Rava. Now Rava responded, Lo Asru Ela Kol Shel Shir. Rava said, no, the only thing that's usher to do in terms of making noise on Shabbos is you make a nice, pleasant sound. The banging on the door is not forbidden whatsoever. So Itve Abaye, Malim B'Diofi, Matipin Miyerek, L'Chol B'Shabbat. And so then Abaye argues with this, and he says one may draw up wine from a barrel with a siphon, and one may drip water from a vessel that releases water in drops for an ill person on Shabbos. Okay, so let's because I was here. Let's share Kirishai here. Okay, because in terms of for the siphon. So here's the siphon. In case people aren't familiar, that means you have one container full of fluid, one container that's not, and basically you would suck on one end of the straw, and then the fluid would start flowing out and continue flowing out.
That's how we used to empty aquarium. I remember that's how we used to empty aquariums. Right, you started, and then hopefully you didn't blow it in too long, and you had aquarium juice in your mouth. But you get it started, and then out it would. I remember doing that in school for the library or something like that.
Correct. That is how you do it. Also done, if you want emptying out a pool, it's the way to do so as well. The way it works in physics is, it's a question if it's based on Bernoulli's principle or based on what is Poré, if everyone's pronouncing that, equation, or based on atmospheric pressure. For more on that, you can look at the Wikipedia page on siphon where they go through more of the science behind it if you're so inclined. But that's what they used to do, and you're allowed to do so. Because that's the siphon. And then also similarly, you're allowed to do the relieve dripping of water from the vessel. So this is not a full medical life-saving procedure, but it's still something that's helpful for a sick person. So these things, so those two things are allowed. So the chola in levari lo. So this implies that these things are only allowed for a sick, because the second case is talking about a chola. So it implies both of those are saying just for a chola it's permitted, but for a healthy person they can't. So hechi dummy. So wait. So what's the circumstances where this case comes up, where you're dripping the water or trying to get the wine out of the barrel? Like what's going on here? So lav dinim v'ka by v'litar. Rather, he's currently dozing off, and I wish to wake him. They want to do it gently by the sound of water pouring from the vessel. So shramina ola de kala asir. So that implies from here that producing a sound is problematic, and we only, even though it's a nice, pleasant, drip sound, or the sound of the drawing out of the wine from the barrel, we only let you do so in the case of an ill person. So then the Gemara says, "Lo, no, that's wrong. The tier v'kabai delanim. No, the answer is actually the person is currently awake and they want to fall asleep. Timishtame kikala dezimzume. Rather, they're using it like it's a metronome. It's a nice, relaxing sound, back and forth and back and forth, and that's what helps the person go to sleep. And that by the falling drops. So actually, you learn the exact opposite thing from this case, but there's absolutely no problem of making noise in this sense. So itve hamashamer perotav b'nei alchot u'dlu'av b'nei chaya mashamer kedarko b'shabbat. So we learned in another. So Rabbi has another objection to Rabbi from before, based on another brayta, that if somebody who's guarding his produce from birds or his gourds from wild beasts, he can do so the way he normally would on Shabbos. As long as he doesn't clap or slap or dance with making noise with his feet the way that he normally would to scare away the animals. So you have to be a very boring scarecrow. None of the being not being not putting on a show for the birds. So my time, why do you do it differently? Like I don't understand that. This sounds a little bizarre. So lav de kamolid kala, b'chol olid kala. There's not because when you're doing all these clapping and clapping your hands and dancing around and making noise. No, that's not the worry about making the noise. The issue is that if you're used to the way you normally do it, you clap, slap, or dance. So part of also what you would do in addition to shouting at the animal, shouting at it and like making all these loud noises, is you'll take a rock and try and throw it at it. And that's the problem. Throwing of the rock, which on a Shabbos is usher. Even right? Even if it's, best case scenario, assuming you don't throw it far enough to violate any of the Isser Machotza, you've still violated handling Moksa. That's the best case scenario.
Unless you designated a rock for throwing at the birds.
Correct. That would solve the Moksa issue, but you still might violate Moksa Doraisa.
Right.
So that's pretty bad. Or if you're really good, you'll violate the Seder if you manage to hit the bird and knock it down. But not all of us have that good aim. So, yeah. So, Ve'elahad Amar of Yehuda Amarav, Nashim Hamasachakot Begozim Asur. So now we have a similar thing, a similar case, quoted by Rabbi Yehuda named Rav, that women who play with nuts is forbidden. My time, Lav Kamoli Kala Makola Lidi Kala Asir. So what's wrong with playing with nuts? Is it not that when they're busy playing with them, they're busy knocking them together and that's making noises? No, rather the issue is they'll come to level the holes and they're doing it. Basically, it works out to be more or less like the game of marbles, where you'd roll the nuts against each other, and you'd save. If it's not fully flat, you'd be like, it's not fair that I lost. If it was smooth, you're gonna try to smooth out the ground. And by doing that, you'll have violated Isser Deraisa of being Meshava Karka, and therefore that's why we said you can't play this version of marbles involving nuts on Shabbos. So that has nothing to do with the noises made by playing marbles or playing nuts in this case. Rather, the issue is something else that is leveling the ground. Ilo temahachi had amar Rav Yehuda nashim esachakot v'tapochim asur hata ma olede kala miika. So if you really thought the problem was the noise, then we have another statement of Rav Yehuda where he says that women are used to play with apples, and there we say that it's asur. But if you play the game with apples, there's no noise because apples tend to be more of a squish when they hit each other, not a nice knocking sound. So Ella Dilma rather clearly the problem is right that you're playing some form of game of marbles, and then you'll end up hitting it, and that'll be the problem. Okay, so now that we've dealt with with the question of Hashmat Kol, now we're back to that. Now we're back to the question of the Mishnah of using the filling from the cistern and how that works. So Tanan, Mali Mibor Hagola Mibor Hagado Bagagal B'Shabbat. So again, you're allowed to fill using the cistern of exiles and the great cistern by means of the wheel on Shabbat. So this implies allowed in the Beit Mikdash, but Medina low. Allowed in the Mikdash, but not anywhere else. My time, Allah Mishum Dolode Kala Abbas. It's not usher because you were to use this big this mechanism that makes a lot loud noises, and that's the problem. Lo, Zera Shami Malay Liginata Bukharbato. No. The reason why we don't normally let you draw water is because once you draw water using these type of machines, you might make a mistake and start drawing water for your garden or to water an empty space of some sort. So therefore, we don't want you to end up drawing water for other things as well, because then you'll end up violating watering on Shabbos because you'll do too much, and then you'll end up getting water for other things, and all end up. Oh, oops! I happen to have spilled while I was washing my hands. I happen to have spilled enough water to water my garden. Oopsies! That they don't want you to do that by accident, because it's not by accident; it's on purpose. So they don't want you doing that. So as far as here, so as far as what the wheel mechanism looked like, here we go. So here we go. Here's an example of the wheel. Right. So this is how you do it. So this is not the big one. This is not referring to the case in the Beit Mikdash where they had the big the version of hydraulics they had that bring the kinor above ground and below ground. That's not this. It's referring to this case. This wheel to help you in terms of drawing water from your well. So that's the type of a contraption they had. So. So So only the Maimar permitted people to use this type of wheel in Mechoza. Amar, my tama gaz rabbanan, shemi malel gidanto lo korbano, haka logina ika below korba ika. So the isser is because of the garden or the ruin that you might draw water for it and then spill it out over there. So in the case that the way that Mechoza is laid out, this particular well, there was nothing to water, right? The town's got paved roads, and there's no gardens or empty areas to plant in anywhere nearby, so you should be perfectly mutter. So then, keva de kasad de ka taru ba kitana. But then, what's the problem? We then noticed that people were soaking their flax in the water. So al-sarlahu. Then he prohibited them from using the wheel at all because he thought they were using it for a different isser. Because soaking flax for the purposes on Shabbos is also usher. It's also considered to be a malacha. So therefore, he prohibited all this as well. So don't worry, we're still allowed to use our running water. So again, Isser was specifically about the wheel. Don't worry. Aqueducts we're not ushered. Therefore, our pipes are still good. So we move to Be'er Hakar. Then we spoke about the well of Hakar. So what is that? So my Be'er Hakar, Amar Shmuel, Bor Shehikru Allah Darim Tirua. So Shmuel says this is a well that they argued about, and then they permitted drawing from it. So the word Hakar is because it's the one they argued about. So the well of arguments. The Metzger, Lo Kol Haborot Hakarot Hitiru Ela Zobilva. No, they didn't permit all of these wells that are called Hakarot. Rather, only this one they argued about. The Amarti Shehikru Dvar Malav My Zobilvad. But continue to say that it's the word we said that they argued about, like in plural, and therefore, so why is it only one? Like I don't understand. Like, is it one? Is it many? I'm missing something here. So Ella, Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Be'er Mayim Chaim Shenam Mar Kakir Bayir Mema Begomer. Right. So, right. So that doesn't really fit. So rather, we have Rav Nachman that said that this simply means what is Be'er Hakar? This is a well of fresh water, meaning which has an underwater source as opposed to a cistern. It says, as it keeps its water fresh. And the word there is hakir, which looks very similar to, again, that's the word we have, be'er hakar, right? Hakar, hakir. So saying that that's where the name of that type of well is from. So it's saying that you would be allowed to use so if it's from this type of well. Okay. Gufa lo kol haborot hakarot hitiru elazo bilvad. So I mentioned earlier that they didn't allow all of them, only this one. Usha'alu b'nei hagola chanu aleh onavim shebenehem hitiru lahen. So what's this original case? So this basically was what happened when everybody was making aliyah from Bavel. So they camped by this well, and then the Nevi'im are with them. They allowed them to use this well, to draw water in this well, even in this way, even on Shabbos. Below Nevi'im shebenehem ela minhag avotam b'yadeihem, and it was not really the fact that allowed them to draw water from here on Yom Tov. It has nothing to do with the fact that there really were the Nevi'im. I mean, it was just like a sudden declaration from Chagat Skari Malachi. Rather, it was because the Bnei Israel from the phrase Imlo Nevi'im Bnei Nevi'im Haim, that even though they themselves are not prophets, they're the sons of prophets, meaning that the minhag, that since they knew the minhag of the people was to carry from here and to use this well, that's like they permitted it. So it's not that it was a harad shah b'navi, not just a one-time thing. Rather, they were saying this was already existing practice, and just the Chagat Skari Malachi knew about it, and the rest of people did not. Okay. Okay. So now we've got some more din and rabbanan problems that can come out, and how we're supposed to deal with it. So Sheretz shenimtza b'mikdash. So there's one of the sheratzim that are matame, as listed in Vayekra. Kohen motzi behem miyano shalol lishhot et hatuma. Divrei Rabbi Yochanan Broka. So Rabbi Yochanan Broka says the way that he's supposed to remove it is he carries it out in his girdle, which is one of the big days. Okay. So let's stop sharing because again there's no picture of the. If you go to there, the right, but again that part and so he would put it in his belt, right, and then his hamanyo, and then that's how we carry it out. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer mitzvat shel eight shalol or butter tetuma. Rabbi Yehuda says no, you should remove it with wooden prongs because again if they're made out of straight wood, then they would not be makabel tuma, and that way there would be less tuma overall. So mehechan motziin oto. So again, is there a limit on how far you can take it out? So mina hechal, mina ulam, ubein haulam, lemizbeach, divrei yibishem bananas. So Rishim Bananas says you can remove it from whether it be in the ulam, the hechal, meaning which right from the sanctuary itself, mina ulam, which is the larger hall farther out. It's farther in, then you get ulam mizbeach. Again, that's the second half of the that's once you're in the ulam towards where the mizbeach hanachoshet is. All those areas are places where you should remove it from. Right, so basically pretty much everywhere. Rabbi Kiva Omer kol makom shchaydin al dono karet al shigol chatat misham motziin oto. So Rabbi Kiva says no. Any place where one is liable karet, if one entered there while being tamei, he would get karet, and accidentally b'chad chatat. Those are the areas. So therefore, that's even larger. Not just these areas. That's actually the entirety of the area of the Beit Hamikdash, right? Within the structure of all the ulamot, right? All those areas that you get karet for stepping on by accident. Those or on purpose or by accident you get b'chad chatat. So all those locations, which are kol makomot kofin alav tzafter, but it's not a place where you can be chayiv. That so again, it's not by the chatzer of only the chatzer according to Rabbi Kiva. So if not, they would cover it with a bowl, and that way, by the bowl would prevent the tumah from spreading, and therefore that would solve the issue. Rabbi Shimon Omer makom shetzir l'cha chachamim mishalcha not lulaf shelo etzir l'cha ela b'shem shul. Rabbi Shimon says wherever the chachamim say that it's something permitted to you, they grant only from their own, meaning they permitted you to do activities that are prohibited rabbinically in the Mikdash, not things that are actually Raisa. Therefore, you should be more. So therefore, if they say it's mutter and have no compunction about it, because it means it was simply only us to make Rabbanan before, and now we simply say that it is that Isser Rabbanan is not applying in the Beit Mikdash. Make sense? Okay, we'll unpack this a bit more in the Gemara because we'll basically touch every single phrase here. So, Amar Rav Tavi Bar Kifna Amar Shmuel Hamachnis Tamei Sheret L'Mikdash Chayav Sheret L'Tmo Patur. So a person who brings into the Beit Mikdash and something that has been become impure because of a sheret would be chayav, but if he brought a actual sheret, he would have been patur. So my time. Well, this sounds a little strange. Why is that? So Amar Kra mizachar v'ad nekeva t'shalechu mi sheyesh lo tahara b'mikvah yat sheret she'ein lo tahara. So you, the carrier of the item, who brought the item in, is the problem. So therefore, only men and women would be able to would be in violation. But technically, for the fact that you brought the sheret itself inside, there is no that you didn't actually violate anything for the bringing of that. But for you yourself, so let's say you managed to so you have a kli that's not makatalo tuma. say you have a stone. You say let's say you're currently carrying either you have a stone cleave with other color tumah, or if using those nice wooden prongs that before, and on the end of it is one of the shrats that I mentioned in the Torah. We're not going to discuss all the shrats tomorrow. But yeah, things that crawl, many legs, certain types of flying things and rodents and lizards, right? Those are considered to be tumah sherets on them. So let's say you're holding one of those guys, you're holding a sheret by means of these tongues, and you walk into the Beit Mikdash, right? So technically, you have violated nothing because you are currently, again, assuming you're currently tahor, right? You didn't do anything wrong because you are tahor. But on the other hand, if you had walked in while you yourself are tameh, you would have violated something. Because the fact that that the sheriff got in isn't the problem. The fact that you entered while you're tameh is a problem. So lema misayleg mizachar ad nekevat shalchayu. So let us say we have a bride that supports him. So both male and female, right? You shall put out. So prat lekli cheres tevei Rabbi Yosi. So meaning so that you wouldn't have an earthenware vessel will not be a violation of it. So my time law mishum the late tower is it's not because that if you would have brought a tameh piece of earthenware in, it's not. So if you brought an item, this item is not itself able to become tower either. So therefore, that's why just like the sheret is no problem, similarly an earthenware vessel isn't a problem because the earthenware vessel cannot be dipped in a mikvah, right? Once pottery is tameh, the only solution you have is to shatter it to pieces, right? You can never use it again once it becomes tameh. So the grant is low. No, the answer is that the only problem is if the item itself could become an avatuma. That's the klicharetz she'enu na'aseh avatuma, and the issue is that an earthenware utensil, while it can become tameh, but it itself cannot ever be an avatuma, can't be a primary source of tuma, and therefore that's why if that were to be brought into the Beit Mikdash, you would not have been in violation of being matameh the Mikdash. So lema ketanai. So let's say this issue of bringing in the sheret into the Beit Mikdash is parallel to another case. So sheret sheninsav Mikdash. Sorry, this is a machloket tanaim. So what's that? So again, you bring the sheret that's found in the Beit Mikdash. The Kohen has to take it out using his girdle, right? So Shalol hashahod at the truma. Rabbi Yochanan Broka says to take out as fast as possible, using your girdles, that we are not, and because the issue is having the sherets in there. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'tzvat shel eight motzio shlol rabot in the truma. Rabbi Yehuda says you should take it out using wooden tongs, so you don't make anything else more tameh than currently exists. So my love. So what's this argument? This is what they're arguing about. Demand the Amar Shlola Shahot Kasavar Hamachnis Sheret Mikdash Chayav. So the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Broku says you should remove it as fast as possible. Clearly, he thinks that there's a problem of the Sheret being in the Beit Mikdash at all, and that if you could have moved and you did it, then you're violation. Second opinion, that of Rabbi Yehuda and Sheret Mikdash Patur. He must hold that if you would have brought in the Sheret into the Beit Mikdash, you would not have been violation of anything. You could be Patur. So lo, the Chulei al Machayev. No, everybody agrees that if you bring a Sheret, if you bring a Sheret's carcass into the Beit Mikdash, that's a problem. Okay. So we go to the argument about Mar Savar Shoi Tuma Adif, Mar Savar Puche Tuma Adif. No, they both agree that you shouldn't bring a Sheret's carcass and be matame the mikdash with it. Doing so is a problem. The question is, once you notice there's a dead animal, a dead sharet there, how do you deal with that? The answer is you have to. The question is, what's better, to have it there? What's more important? Getting it out of there as rather according to this machloket tanaim. Rather, this instead comes down to the question of where is it? Can you remove it from? As I mentioned earlier, of whether or not it's only from the Rishimon and Rabbi Akiva say that you can remove it from the Heichal. The question is the ulam and between the ulam and the mizbeach. That's where the mizbeach or the Ezra or the rest of the zara. The question is which areas are you allowed to or not allowed to carry it out of? So my law b'hakim. So what do they argue about? Timan de amar mezara lo kasavar hamachin shar shlemekach patur. Man de amar mechulei azara kasavar chayav. So isn't this the case that so rather here's what they argue about. According to the opinion that you're not that in the azara you shouldn't move it. He holds that a machin sheret l'mikdash patur. If you have brought the sharet into the Beit Mikdash, you're patur. But the one who says that you have to remove it from the whole azara thinks you be chayav, and that's machloket. So now Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan says this whole machloket we have of can you bring it in and from which areas can you remove it, it's all based on the same pasuk. Vayvoa kohanim lifnim Beit Hashem l'taher vayotziu et kol tuma asher mat'u b'hechal Hashem l'chatzar Beit Hashem vayikablu al di'im l'otzi l'nachal kidron chutza. So this is a pasuk from Divrei Hayamim. So the kohanim went into the inner part of the Beit of the house of God, the Mikdash, when they're trying to cleanse it, and they brought out all of the impurities that they found in the Beit Mikdash into the courtyard of the Beit Mikdash, and then Levim took it to carry it out to Nachal Kidron, where it would then remain.
I just wanted to check in. Wish you all a mazel tov to the scene tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Okay, mazel tov, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take
Mazel
care.
tov.
Very tough.
All right.
Someone can walk into the virtual room very quietly, can't they? If you're not paying attention, you can't hear footsteps.
Yes. So a much more welcome interruption than if we would have suddenly had a sheret running to Beit Mikdash, for sure.
Yeah, especially because it was a Kohen as well.
He is a Kohen, right? So if Harry made the Midrash is rebuilt, hopefully like Kropkin will be serving as one of the Kohanim. So.
Man.
So okay. And there we have again. You see the Kohanim moving it from one place of Midrash to another place. Then the Levim moving it. The question, based on the explanation of the pasuk, would be where exactly you have to move the Truma from. So Mar Savar mit Ishtani ba'azara b'Levim Tuma ba'azara Leka. So one of the Chachamim, meaning Rabbi Shimon ben Nanas, says that since it switched hands between the Kohanim and the Levim, so Truma, and that's what they did, it's Truma Bazar Leka. So so that implies that there's no problem meaning that there's only a problem farther inside, right? Lifnim, but in the Heichal it's a problem, but in the outer more area, in the Chaser, it would not be a problem. Here, let's get let me see if I can find us a diagram of diagram. Make 1 second. Just to might help a little bit. Here we go. Here. Beit Mikdash. Here, Jerusalem temple in English. Come on, open up. Nice and large. A moment, it'll be here in a second. I realize that might be a little bit more helpful for people if they can so when we're pointing from here to here to here, it'll help if we have a little bit more pictorial explanation. Okay. Okay, so let me share that. Oh, it's from Pinterest. Okay, here, everything's in English. Hopefully that'll make things easier. The differentiate between the chatzer. I believe so. Okay. So everybody sees this, right? So again, the question is which areas are the problem, right? Kodesh Kodashim for sure is a problem, right? The question is, right, and the inner Hechal is that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. The question is, again, 4, 5, and 7 versus 9. So that's the question. So the question. So once you've done so, the question is when they changed hands. So what does that mean? That can indicate there's that in that area, right? In the outer, again, both in the Beit Midrash proper, we're only allowed to go. In the other areas, and maybe then there's no problem. So Mar Savar means Ishti Bazar Belavim, Tuma Bazar Lake. That means in the Zara, there's no problem. That's why the Levim took it from there. Mar Savar Ad Hecha Delo Efshar Belavim Maptikon. No, the answer is no. It's the whole area is a problem, but what can you do? Only certain areas are only Kohanim can enter, and that's why the Kohanim were bringing it up to that point. Hajj is after Levim, Tula Matame Kohanim, right? So since then, once you reach a point where the Levim are allowed to go, then they transfer to the Levim. It's not a problem of it not being Tame. It's just that you want to have the Kohanim be Tame themselves for the minimal amount of time, and therefore they handed as soon as they could hand it off to a Levi, they did not. But then if there was no Levi there, the Kohen should have brought it all the way out. Okay, so okay, go. Okay, so now now we no longer need to debate over which places are which, but we still have to. We still have a little bit more to discuss in regards to in regards to bringing out of Chuma, and in which cases, as well as some issues that may come up with constructing Beit Mikdash. So Tanar Banan, Akol Nikmasin, Behechal, Livnot, Ultaken, Ulotzi, et Chuma. So everybody is allowed to enter into the Hechal of the Beit Mikdash in order to construct it, to fix it, or to remove something that is Tameh. Mitzvah Kohanim, but it is preferred to be done by Kohen. In Ein Sham Kohanim in Hatim Levi'im. So first, we want the Kohen to do the Voda. Ein Sham Levi'im, if there's no Levi'im on premises, Nechnatin Yisraelim. And if there's no Levi'im, then that's when the Yisraelim get their chance. The Edi, Tahor, and In, Tamein Lo. But in any event, this only is the case if they are Tahor. If they're Tameh, then not. So if you had a Tameh Kohen and a Tahor Yisrael, so then the Tahor Yisrael would be the one who's in charge of doing the construction right now, as opposed to the Kohen. Amar Rav Huna, Rav Kahana, Messiah Kahane. So Rav Huna said, Rav Kahana, who, as his name was a Kohen, is supporting the Kohanim. Mitov Shenamar Ach El Parochet Yavo Yachol Lo Yehu Kohanim Balim Umin Niklasim Ben Ulam LaMizbeach Lasot Rikui Tachim. So Rav Kahana told Beit that since it is stated that there's a problem, Kohen, that he shall not go until the Parochet, so you may have thought that he is not allowed to even end up doing anything else in terms of entering into the Kohen in terms of, let's say, making the making the gold plates for the Beit Midrash. So some Lamar ach. Rather than instead that's what the word ach comes. Hilek mitzvah bat mimim ein sham tmim nechasim balei mumim. So the Kohanim who you'd have do all the construction, all the other work should be, the Kohen is also fit to do the avoda as well. But if that Kohen's not there, then the other Kohanim get a chance. One balei mumim, right? So we're very strict in regards to the halakha of what of a Kohen serving doing the avoda is. They have to be exactly even proportioned. They have to look normal. They can't have any blemishes. They can't even be left-handed. There's a whole bunch of a list of specifics for them. So not that they're necessarily urgency to do the avoda proper. But as far as there's other things, now our order is Kohanim who would be fit to do the avoda, then other Kohanim. Then Levit, then Yisrael. So mitzvah b'tahorin, and this is both. This is talking about when they both are tahor. That's when the preference goes to the tahor. But there's nobody who's tahor, then it's man. If there's somebody there who's tahor, then the person who's tamek, who's the kohen, who do so instead. Edi kohanim in v'Yisraelim lo. But according to Kahana, as opposed to before, we said Yisraelim do so as well. It's saying that only kohanim are allowed to do so. So ibai eluhu. Right. So Rav Kahana says. So for Rav Kahana, right. So the order is actually goes as follows: Kohanim who are first comes Kohanim who are roy to the avoda. Then come Kohanim who are not roy to the avoda. Who again either Kohanim who are tamei, and then comes the rest of the list. So ibailu. So now we're questioning what is that really the order of things. So tamei ubal mum ezo mehen nichnas. So we ask, so the person is tamei, or somebody who has unable to serve in the Beit Midrash because they have some sort of blemish. So which one of them is preferred? It was the Kohen this is a Kohen versus who is tamei versus a Kohen who's bal mum. Which one's preferred? So Bechia bar Ashi Amarav tamei nichnas. Daha ishterei bavodat tzibor. Rav Chia says the one that's permitted to enter is the one who is tamei, because at least he can in theory do the avoda. Rabbi Elazar Omer Baal Mum Nichnas Daha Ishterei Bachilat Kachim. Rabbi Elazar says no, the person with the blemish should enter because he currently is allowed to eat kachim, whereas the Kohen who's tamei is not allowed to eat kachim. Okay. I was just saying if we were, should we? Yeah, no, and
do you want
right.
to?
And so then no, we'll do a little bit more. There's another 2 dots. I just making sure I didn't go too far. Right. So we still have there's another 2 dots. We'll do the first 2 dots and then we'll stop before the last 2 dots.
Okay.
Okay. So we got a little bit more. So I just wanted to point out that we pass in according to the opinion that it's more important that he's able to eat kachim than the fact that he doesn't have a move. Okay. And also there's other discussions in the Gemara about how they used to fix in terms of other parts of the Midrash, how they used to fix it in terms of getting people who weren't Kohanim, or say the Kodesh Kodashim, because you want to have people fix, do construction on the inside, how you do it, and how they used to place people in boxes that's surrounded on 4 sides, and there's going to be a hole in front of them where they're doing the work. That way, they wouldn't actually really be in the Kodesh HaKodashim. So that way, they would be in a separate compartment, but they could still do the work, and that would solve the issue we have here. Let's say of the person who's not fit to be there, being there. So And how this will work out when we build Beit Midrash, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out. Okay, so now we're referencing back to the Mishnah about Rabbi Shimon, talking about when the right to Rabbi Shimon Omer Makom shetir lecha chachamim mishelcha natnu lecha shelo tir lecha ela mishum shvut. So talking about how when the right, so Rabbi Shimon is saying that when the Chachamim allowed you certain things, they're talking about Dinim D'Rabbanan. So Rabbi Shimon Hechikai. So now we're trying to figure out what exactly is Rabbi Shimon referring to, and what's the basis for this principle. So Hatam Kai, now he learned it out from there. What do you mean by there? So now we're going to explain. Now going to the Mishnah. Mi shehishchich chut l'tchum afilu ama'achat lo yikanes. A person who finds himself outside the tchum of the city, even by one amma, will not be allowed to enter into the city on Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon Omer, afilu chamesh etzrei amma yikanes, lefi she'ein ham mashachot mematzin et midah mibnei atoyim. Rabbi Shimon says, no, even if you're 15 amot out of the demarcated tchum, right? Back in the day, they used to have tchum markers. Why? Because people used to always they would always estimate it to be a little bit less, right? You always have at least 15 buffer when they put down the tchum marker, because they know people make mistakes. They don't want stuff, and they want you to like walk past it and notice, but not like walk past, but like give you a reasonable buffer zone. Let's say, baseball to be a warning track, right? So you notice, you're like, oh, whoops, and then you can go back, as opposed to, being too late. So the Kamar Tanakama Lo Yikanes, Vamar Le Rabbi Shimon Kanes. And so how do we know this is all regarding the Din of Rabbanan? So that's why we have here where the first bit in our Mishnah earlier in Eruvin says you can enter, whereas Rabbi Shimon cannot, whereas Rabbi Shimon says that you can. Okay, so I guess I'll do a quick wrap up, and everybody has any questions, please ask, and then I'll also recap the details of what's happening tomorrow. Okay, so we started with the Mishnah talking about salting the ramp of the Mizbeach, and why you're allowed to do so in the Mikdash, and how. Then we went on talking about whether or not you're allowed to put down straw, so people don't in your own courtyard, people don't slip either, and why that was allowed, and why that was allowed, and what circumstances and when not. Then we moved on to talking about the cases of the various water sources and the ways you can draw from it or not. We discussed cases using a siphon. We discussed, again, using that nice big water wheel when it's mutter, when it's not mutter. We discussed the case of drawing water from the freshwater wells, and why that in particular was considered to be mutar in different circumstances as opposed to others. And last subject of discussion was in regards to having a sheretz in the Beit Mikdash, and how's the best way to remove so in order to minimize the tumah. And then we got into discussion about in terms of who should be removing it and where, as well as who's the one who's supposed to go in to fix it, whether it be a Kohen, a Levi, or Yisrael, and in the various states of impurity.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Very nice, Rabbi. Okay, looking forward to tomorrow morning. I've already registered for the 7 a.m. But we should start the Zoom at 8, correct?